Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, together with my co-host Mark Ronich of jbiztechvalley.com and Statewide News Service.
Well, it's great to be here again, Rabbi, and we have a special guest with us today, Jeffrey Kuhn, who's the Bethlehem Town Board member and also the chairman of the Democratic Party in Town of Bethlehem. So welcome to the show. It's
Thank you very much, Mark. Rabbi, let me start off by saying it's wonderful to be back with you, and happy Hanukkah. Hanukkah starts tonight at sundown, I believe.
Right. December 16th, because this
Decem-
will
oh,
be
right,
airing
okay.
after the Hanukkah
Right.
celebration is over.
Just it's important you say Hanukkah, and you're a state official, and you're not Jewish. No problem with that. But I'm just saying it's beautiful, the diversity that this city, and I'm not saying that, I know the United States is a beautiful country for diversity, and New York State has a lot of Jewish people in it, but around the Capital District, I want you to know that Hanukkah menorah at the Four Corners in Delmar is the only public menorah in the whole Capital District. And not only that, but your fellow Democrat, of course, our town supervisor, John Clarkson, does participate. He's been a few years, 3-4 years, participating in it and saying, well, all right, the elected official shows up to these events. But even that, I just want to tell our audience that isn't even, that is very special, because there are certain towns around New York State where, all right, legally they have to allow the menorah. On the other hand, the elected official says, well, I'm not participating. So just to have a menorah here doesn't sound anything special to our audience, but I'm telling you it is. And number two, that our town supervisor participates is very, very nice. So
and his predecessor, Sam Messina, also participated.
We've
So
had him in.
yeah, so it's been a town tradition. Yeah.
Right. Well, I think it's we have a wonderful town with a lot of diversity, and I think that's from my perspective, that's a great thing. I love to see, as you indicated, I'm not Jewish, but I love all the different celebrations of all the different faiths. I think it's a great thing. It makes our town an even more special place to live when we celebrate all those things, and I'm happy to hear that we're sort of one of the few towns in the region that does that.
Well, it's interesting, the diversity, because of, I don't know, people know that we are taping in the Bethlehem Library. This is where the studio is. Gracious gives us consent to film here. And it's been a number of years, like 15, 20 years ago, and I said, well, can I put up a Hanukkah menorah in the hall? And again, public property, it's library. And they said, well, Rabbi, what would you feel about having a Christmas tree? So, this is not Israel, Right. Maybe if we were middle of Jerusalem, I'd say something, but what are you going to say? This is a Christian country for the most part. It's a not secular country, but most people say, I says, no, I wouldn't mind it. It's part of diversity. And that really was the argument. They said, well, if you're going to allow that, what's the problem? You have a Christmas tree right next to a menorah if anybody wants to visit. During December, we always do that. Bethlehem Public Library, see a Christmas tree right next to menorah. We can get along with each other, and it is a very beautiful idea. With all the troubles around the world, don't ask. And people just have to read the newspapers that here in the United States and in Bethlehem we can get along with each other.
Absolutely. I think it can get a little, from a legal perspective. I know there's issues about the First Amendment and endorsement of religion, but I think as long as all religions are celebrated and they're kind of put side by side, and people kind of recognize the positive influence that they have and the beautiful traditions in people's lives, I think it's great.
And you're an attorney, so when you
I
talk
am.
about the legal
I am.
side,
I'm not. That certainly is not my area of expertise.
What is your area of expertise?
Well, I think we discussed a little bit last time. I'm primarily an environmental attorney. I practice in some other areas as well, but I think if I was going to describe myself in shorthand, I think it's primarily environmental. Yeah.
So what? Okay. So let's get on with some issues.
Okay.
Get down to business.
Speaking of environmental issues, what do you think of the oil tankers that come through the area here, and that from North Dakota they start out at? And
Right.
They're coming through here, and there have been some issues that maybe these oil tankers aren't safe enough. If they roll over, they could start a fire.
Right.
Do you have any trepidation over these oil tankers as an environmental attorney?
Well, I think first from an official in the town, from a town boardsman, it is the railroads are regulated by the federal government, and we have very little jurisdiction. And there's a concept called basically preemption in the law, which basically says that the federal government is supreme, and if there's an area that the federal government regulates, the town, the state, the county are not at liberty to interfere with those regulations.
That's why I didn't ask you on behalf of the town.
Okay.
But,
Just want to establish that.
But that's good.
But I certainly am, as a citizen and as somebody who's interested in politics and in the environment, I certainly am aware of the controversy that has been going on with the tankers. I believe that they are taking. I've heard some discussion about taking some steps to make sure that the cargo, I guess it's crude oil, is as they can make it not volatile.
Right.
Try and make it so that if there was an accident, that things
can be contained.
Could be contained. And I also believe that there's some discussion of sort of a next generation of tankers. So obviously I'm in favor of them doing everything they can to make it as safe as possible. I think there have been some accidents. I think there was some cars that turned over at the CSX facility in Selkirk maybe a year or so ago. And nothing. There was a turnover, but I don't think anything else happened. So, as long as I think they should always be looking to make things as safe as possible and to be investigating it, and to and obviously commerce has to go forward, but you want it to go forward in the safest way possible. And I think a lot of the controversy that has developed has sort of resulted in extra steps being taken to make sure that as I said, the cargoes are safe, the next generation of tankers are used. Mm-hmm. So it seems like it's one of those. It's that's our sort of democratic process, is that people engage on an issue, and there's a give and a take, and you try to find that happy medium between business and our energy requirements, and also being and public safety, which is obviously one of the highest priorities, and being wise environmental stewards. So that's what's wonderful about our political system, mm-hmm. is that give and take, and we try and arrive at the best possible compromise solution.
What's interesting is that you talk about the trains being federally owned and operated or whatever, or
federally regulated.
Regulated,
yeah.
Okay. And in Albany, just past the Bethlehem line,
mm-hmm.
and Route 32, there's a federal housing project called the Ezra Prentice Apartments.
Mm-hmm.
So some federal whiz somehow said, okay, we got these low-income apartments here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, let's build a track. Or the tracks were there first. Oh, let's build federally, let's build apartments right next to the tracks. I mean, it's like, I've been telling elected officials to just put in their request to the federal government that there should be a wall, a containment wall, like a noise barrier or whatever, that goes up between the tracks and the apartments.
Mm-hmm.
And make it not just not like the Berlin Wall, but
mm-hmm.
it's just, make it an attractive wall. And with a nice design on it or whatever, and then if it turns over, at least you have another safety net
mm-hmm.
before that could contain whatever there might be, a fire, or just even the noise, and just even the all the other apparatus that it takes to right a train that tips over.
Yeah, I mean, I won't pretend to really have that much knowledge about the technical issues related to overturned trains full of crude oil. I wonder whether a wall in the worst case scenario what it would really do, if you do put up some sort of wall, what are the aesthetic impacts of that? I mean, if you're living in that community, do you want to really be? Do you want your view to be of a wall?
Well, it's a pretty wall, and maybe they could do a scene.
mm-hmm.
Not graffiti, but maybe there could be
make it aesthetically pleasing. In some way.
There are ways of making it happen, and you can make the wall high enough. It must be better than looking at oil tankers.
Yeah, I think. Well, yeah,
and some brainiac actually thought that put federal housing next to the federally regulated train tracks.
I think they probably have low-income housing in the worst area, the cheapest
But it doesn't have to
land.
be.
So
Yeah.
that's
You
what
know?
they usually do. So that's
Right.
But we had an official, and Mark's making me. I'm the rabbi, but since he's a reporter, and like yourself, all the political appointees that are here, that they say if the Keystone Pipeline comes through, then that's going to be the end of the railroading. Would that be?
Well,
would be a way to-
Diminished, I think. if
Yeah,
anything.
well, so the idea, I mean, the Keystone Pipeline, as I understand it, is to basically transport Canadian oil sands from their point of where they're being mined or whatever the term is in central Canada, and then to ship those via this Keystone Pipeline down to, is it the oil refineries or probably in
New Orleans.
Louisiana or Texas? I mean, again, this
Would
is
it have to go through Bethlehem?
well, no. I
Okay.
think it would go through, as I understand it, the Keystone Pipeline would go through the middle of the country, so it would be sort of like
Okay. Bethlehem and some other
Minnesota,
state.
Nebraska.
Some other Bethlehem in another state.
Yes, but yeah, perhaps. So, I think there are issues with the Keystone Pipeline with it's going to involve, I think, probably seizures of a lot of private land to build that pipeline, as many pipelines do. And then also, the questions are about encouraging use of Canadian tar sands, which from a lot of people's perspective is probably one of the sort of least environmentally desirable ways to generate energy. It's sort of one of the dirtiest forms of fossil fuel. So I think that's a lot of what goes into the controversy. There's a lot of people who want to see us start to move away a bit more from our dependence on fossil fuels, or move more towards natural gas and other and renewable forms of
How
energy.
do you feel?
Well,
personally?
I think that we need to be. I think as a society, there are a lot of different ways that we can generate energy, and I'm all for promoting renewable energy. Whether it's wind energy, hydroelectric energy, biomass, geothermal. If you're in the right parts of the world that have it, I think that we should be probably using more nuclear energy. I'm a big proponent of that.
So am
I think
It's interesting. Usually you say environmentalists don't. Maybe I'm wrong.
No,
or-
but they're safe. It's a safe.
yeah,
energy.
it's one of those. There are, we obviously we have a very energy dependent society, and that's something that's a related issue. But as long as we're going to have these energy demands, it's I'm not sure if using sort of solar energy and wind energy and hydroelectric is enough to get us. It's not to satisfy all our energy demands, and so then it's going to have to be the rest is going to have to be made up of some mix of nuclear and combustion of fossil fuels. And while nuclear energy certainly has, like all those different kinds of energies, it has its pluses and its minuses. I think that one of the pluses with nuclear energy is that there are no emissions. It doesn't contribute to global warming or to climate change. But obviously there are other environmental issues having to do with what do you do with the spent fuel and everything. But in societies like France, which have a strong commitment to environmental stewardship, they're essentially use 100% on nuclear energy. So I'm someone who thinks it should certainly be part of what we talk about in terms of a mix, because it has, like all those different kinds of energies, it has advantages and disadvantages, and to just sort of say, hey, we're not going to consider that one form of energy technology, I don't think is wise. So,
I don't either. I agree with you.
yeah.
So we do agree on something.
There you go.
All right, that's pretty good for Mark
All right.
right here.
But tell me, what issues in the town
Mhm.
are most compelling right now to you?
Sure.
The budget's not an issue.
Well, yeah, I think we had
got
a
that.
pretty good budget year this year. I mean, a few years ago we had a bit of a budget shortfall because we had a pilot agreement, a payment in lieu of taxes agreement that was expiring for the Selkirk cogeneration facility, and that led to the amount of revenue the town was generating from that facility
No pun intended.
No pun intended, sort of dropping precipitously from one year to the next, and so that did result in an increase in taxes, while at the same time we also cut spending significantly. So we went at that
Right.
gap several years ago from both directions, which is, all right, we have to generate some more revenue and we have to cut spending. Since then, since that sort of difficult budget year, the last two have been significantly better. We're always, I think in both those years, the amount of tax increases was within the state tax cap, which is
Right.
2%. And we're always looking for ways to operate the town government in the most efficient way possible. Figure out ways through technology or through shared services to give the same amount of services, perhaps with by spending less money. And we're always working at that so that we can keep taxes as low as possible, but also deliver the services that people have come to rely on in this town. And we do things in this town that other communities don't do. I mean, for example, the town picks up all your leaves in Bethlehem,
Yes.
where in many communities that isn't the case, and in the autumn you just have to sort of deal with that on your own. So, I mean, that's just one example of the when we were having sort of difficult budget times, that's something that was considered in terms of, well, is this a service we can still afford to do? And I think we really said, yeah, that's something that people have come to expect and to appreciate about their town government. So we're gonna find other ways, other places to cut and to.
Do you, off the top, happen to know? I'm getting to a point here.
Sure.
How much that leaf picking up does that cost?
How much that costs?
Yeah.
I don't know the answer
Okay.
to that off the
So,
top of my head.
Because when you get into this leaf picking up business,
Mhm.
it's never fast enough. The residents say, well, it's been out here my leaves have been out on the side for 2 weeks.
Right.
Where are you?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, say thank you for doing the service at all.
Right.
But,
Well, people
here
pay
they
taxes,
want
and it isn't. They
so I'm
are
just letting you.
Yeah,
don't know if
I
you've
hear
heard
about
that.
it.
You do. Okay.
Absolutely, I do. I mean, the idea is, I think they're on a 3-week schedule,
Yeah.
but it's
I
always.
stopped one of the highway department guys, and I asked him. Because he was coming around for they were coming around for something else.
Mhm.
I said, when do you think, the leaves? And he goes, well, they got a schedule of when they go through, and he was explaining very nicely. He was
Yeah.
explaining it all to me, and I was like, there's a lot more that goes into this leaf picking up than
Right.
you would think.
Well, it's the highway department,
Right.
and it's of course always subject to the vagaries of the weather.
Right.
And if we had some early snowfall this year, and so the highway department is out,
With the
they're out
plows.
plowing,
Yeah.
and so because we have a finite number of individuals employed in the highway department, they need to be doing that. So it means they're not picking up the leaves at that time. So they will get them. They'll get
Yeah.
around to all of them. I've got leaves on my lawn that have been there for, it seems like, more than 3 weeks at this point. And if I have to reseed in the spring, then so be it. But I know we have a new highway superintendent, Brent Meredith, who's been on the job for about a year now, a little over. I guess this is his first year, and
Yeah,
he is doing a great job. I know he's introduced a lot of modernizing and new ideas
Right.
when he took over. So they will be picked up. It's just
So, and he's a Democrat.
yes, he is.
So it switched. Greg Sagendorf was his predecessor, who was a Republican,
Right.
and now it's switched to a Democrat. So
Yes.
are there any Republicans left?
There is. You mean townwide elected
Well,
officials?
was it
Nancy Mendick, our receiver of taxes, is a Republican.
Sole Republican.
But yes,
Last-
every
last
other
one person standing.
every other townwide elected official is a
Democrat.
Is a Democrat.
How did that happen? I mean, it used to just 10 years ago it was all Republican. How did this? I mean, you're the Democratic chairman. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, sure.
How did this happen?
Well, I think the power of the democratic ideas, perhaps.
It's got to be more than that.
Yeah. Well, listen, there are demographic shifts in the town.
Yeah, but it's got to be. There were people from Albany moving to Bethlehem,
Well,
and they
that's-
re-enrolled from being a Democrat to being enrolled as a Republican when they moved here under previous administrations 20 years ago. And you had a waiting list for the GOP committee slots, and everyone wanted to be a committeeman. Now
Right.
they barely can fill what their requirements. So
Well, I mean, we have,
that's
from
gotta
the
be
from
more
the
than-
Democratic Committee's perspective, I mean, we now have a very very well-run committee with a lot of participation. We have 62 members, and we now have sort of a waiting list of people who would like to join
it's
the committee.
amazing how times change.
Yeah, but I think from the Democrat perspective, there's a lot of people in the town who are committed or civic-minded and committed to having the town run as smoothly as possible, and that's people tend to sort of get involved in the committee. Not always, but people tend to get involved in the committee, and as sort of a first step in getting involved in local politics, and then from there might eventually decide to run for some town-wide office, and that's the way it's worked.
But it used to be that there were Democrats moving into the town of Bethlehem, even Guilderland too, but Guilderland's all Democrat now. And Colony is all Democrat, believe it or not. So, and you have like one position maybe that is Republican, like in Colony, the town clerk, Liz Del Tordo, is Republican.
Okay.
But anyway, this is a community here in Bethlehem that is that just doesn't always gravitate towards one party or another. It didn't always. Now, is it the independents, the blanks? Are they a third? Are they equal to the enrollment of the Republicans and Democrats? Or?
Well, when you say the independents, do you mean
No, the blanks. I said
the NOP, non-affiliated? I think that the Democrats are. I mean, I know the relationship between the Democratic enrollment and the Republican enrollment.
What is that?
Well, the Democrats, I think we have about a 10 to 6. So maybe 10,000 to 6,000 enrollment advantage.
Wow.
These are rough figures.
Yeah. And again, that in the 20 years that flipped, because it used to be over
Right.
10,000 for Republicans and under 6,000 for Democrats.
Right. Well, a lot of that. I mean, a lot of it is are local factors. A lot of it are national factors. I mean, people tend to be much more aware of national politics than local politics, and I think a lot of times their party identification is a function of what they see at the national level. There's a lot more media attention on the national issues.
Well, there's also a philosophy on the national level, and you don't get that. You don't get a philosophy on the local level. Like when I was working for a countywide political organization, I asked, well, what's our motto? What's our mantra? What do because I was doing an ad journal, I wanted to put our, and they said, well, go ask state committee.
Yeah.
And then I went to state committee. They said, well, we don't have one. Go see what the nationals. And the national mantra is a lot different for both Republicans and Democratic sides. The national mantras are a lot different than the state mantra.
Oh, absolutely.
Or the local mantra. So you can't use the national one because it doesn't. New York is totally a different animal for both parties.
Absolutely.
In around the country. So what I'm saying is that and how long have you been town chair?
I became the chairman of the party in 2012.
So do you think that, so it's been about 2 years, 3 years?
Yeah, a little over 2 years.
So is this something that it was your predecessor gets the credit for turning this around from Republican to Democrat in the town, or?
Well, I think there are a variety of factors that contributed to that. Some of them are local, some of them are national, some of them are purely demographic that really don't have anything to do with any individual. I mean, the party has I think been more well organized than the Republicans locally for several years, and that obviously plays a part in it. Yeah. But there's a variety of factors, and I think you see a lot of people who might have been moderates in the past and who might have broken either way, I think tend to break more, at least in the Northeast, at least in the state of New York, I think they tend to break more for the Democrats. That's just my perspective on it.
Are you a political animal?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I mean, I'm on the town board, I'm the chairman of the party. I follow politics.
When did you get the bug?
Oh, well, I mean, I went to college for political science in Washington, D.C. So
Which college?
I went to American.
Oh, wow. Very good school.
Oh, thank you. So I've had the bug for a long time. It's always been something that's fascinated me. obviously I'm interested in the policy of it, the interchange of the different policy ideas. The politics of it can be interesting too. You always hope that the debate is more about policy than about sort of personalities and things like that. But no, I've had the bug and been fascinated by the process and everything for quite a while.
So, what's in your future? I mean, now you're on the town board.
Yep.
You're an attorney in a private with a private firm.
Yeah.
You're not working for the state.
No, I work in private practice.
And you have, you're the town chairman. What's in your future? Something's got to gel here. You're young, and
I mean, at this point, I'm on the town board, and I have a year left on my term, and I think to continue to do the things that we've been doing. I feel like we are making good progress in the town, and I like to think that we're sort of a model of municipal government. Continue to operate the town as effectively as possible. I think if you kind of keep your eyes on what you're doing and do it as well as you can, then other opportunities may present themselves, and you just
Would
have
you
to
look for political office yourself full time? I'm saying, you're in the political system. Depends what you do.
Yeah, I wouldn't reject the concept, but I think a lot of stuff in politics is sort of about opportunity and who else is
for
running.
example, if I know that there's a long line of people, if Senator Breslin was to retire, there's a long line of people who'd want to succeed him.
Sure.
Is that would you be in that line?
That's not something I've really given much thought to. I think Senator Breslin does a wonderful job,
yes,
and I don't know if there's any reason to think that he's retiring, but So no, I'm not in the line.
Mark, we're out of time.
We're out of time.
We're when you have a good time, that time flies. And thank you for coming back again. And
my pleasure. It's always
there's
great
always
to talk to
something new happening in the world. The world's never stagnant. Our town is not stagnant.
Jeff, we got to have you back soon.
Come
absolutely.
back.
I'd love to.
Absolutely.
I always enjoy talking
So,
with you
Jeff,
guys.
thank you very much for being on The Jewish View.
My
Continue
pleasure.
your good work.
Thanks so much, Rabbi Mark.